Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, baby. Hey there, this is my new motorcycle. It's a 2009 Ducati Monster 1100S. It's not a giveaway bike, it's not a demo bike. It's a bike that I just wanted to get because I think it's pretty sweet. Now, I'm not here to convince you this is the best bike ever made or you should go out and buy one. Rather, what I want to do in today's video is talk about modern bikes and how we've kind of lost a little bit of something over the last 20 years. Because modern bikes are the best they've ever been. They're amazing to ride, but realistically, they're a little stale, a little safe, a little designed by committee. I've gotten the chance to ride hundreds of bikes during my time here on YouTube. Everything from 300 horsepower Turbo Hayabusas to bastardized Scrambler Gixxer 250s. And I've noticed slowly but surely, bikes are getting a little too easy to ride. And that's why I wanted a palate cleanser, something to remind me of what I love about motorcycling in the first place. There's 3 points I want to discuss in today's video. Why did I get this specific Monster? That's the first one. The second point is what makes this bike unique or special versus new motorcycles. And I'll show you some of the little details on this bike that bring me a lot of joy. So what exactly are the features or technologies that make modern motorcycles feel a little bit cold or sterile? And how does this little time capsule help fix those issues? Well, it comes down to a couple of things. First of all, in my opinion, is the connection to the throttle. A proper physical cable throttle will always feel more analog or pure. Now, ride-by-wire systems have gotten a lot better over the years, but I still think a cable throttle is the most direct way. Layered over a ride-by-wire system are typically electronics, different ride modes, throttle mappings, and all these other things that give that kind of weird and wonky feeling from your hand down to the rear tire. This causes layers between the rider input and the motorcycle output. And in my opinion, the fewer layers you have between you and the motorcycle and the more physical a connection is, the more analog and pure a motorcycle can feel. The other thing that comes into play is engine character. These new twins and triples that are out there on the market make power really effortlessly. And while that is really nice for around town riding, some of their power delivery can feel a little artificially flat. Compared to the big booming twins of the past like this Monster or even high-stressed inline fours from other motorcycles, you had to understand the engine and what it required of you to ride it, rather than just kind of twisting and going and not really worrying about what gear you're in. Having to work with the engine's character gives me that analog feeling as well. Too much precision or smoothness in the engine also makes it feel a little too cold or sterile. I think that if a motorcycle is way too smooth and precise, you ultimately don't feel connected to it. Think of something like a Goldwing or an electric motorcycle. And then there's also lack of involvement and just ease of use. You know, motorcycles that have quick shifters up and down, have very easygoing chassis and well-defined geometries. It just makes the riding, well, really easy, which is good for most people. But if you want that more raucous, kind of characterful feeling, you want something that isn't so polished. So this Monster kind of solves for all of those things, in my opinion, and gives me that palate cleanser that I'm looking for. The other thing about this bike that makes it really different from modern bikes is it has features that you just can't really find on modern motorcycles. Now, these aren't things that make it feel more raw or analog to ride necessarily, but they're just cool features that you just don't find as much. Sort of like the single-sided swing arm or the trellis frame, the dry clutch, the air-cooled engine, which in fact is the last version of the Monster that had the air-cooled engine was this one. Or how about the no ABS direct to the caliper brake lines? These are all features that just kind of add to that charm and flavor of this bike. Then of course there's also other little things I like about it. There's the simplistic dash. It doesn't have a superfluous TFT display because this bike doesn't have any features, so why would it have a big screen? There's the fact that at the front end, there's the carbon fiber front fender, which I really love, and the blue capped Öhlins, which reminds me of my first Daytona 675R. And then of course there is that big booming air-cooled 2-valve Desmo L twin, which as many of you know, I had in my Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled. So it's also a bit of a nostalgia play for me. and a way for me to feel like the sled never really left. So where did this desire to own the Monster come from? Have I always wanted one of these motorcycles? Well, not exactly. It all started because I wanted a real road bike again, a sport bike, but not too sporty. I didn't want a hyper naked, but I didn't want something too slow either. I liked retro stuff, but I didn't want something too retro. And I liked the neo-retro stuff, like my Desert Sled or the Guzzi we just recently had, or the Speed Twin. Last year in 2025, I came extremely close to pulling the trigger on a Ducati Monster S4 RS Tricolore. I'm not gonna get into the nitty-gritties about that motorcycle, but I ultimately backed out because it was too special and precious and I wouldn't really want to ride it. I couldn't really figure out what it was that I wanted, so I just waited. I knew eventually the path would be revealed to me. I don't like making impulsive decisions nowadays. Now one day I was on Cycle Trader looking for something else and somehow it popped up. This 2009 Ducati Monster 1100S. It was just a when you know moment. It was 100% stock, low mileage, pristine, although it did need a little bit of work. I'll tell you more about that later. And it was only 200 miles away in the DFW area being sold by a dealership. I knew it was now or never. This was the bike. It hit all the marks and it was hiding in plain sight this entire time. The search for my perfect street bike was over. So I pulled the trigger in late February of this year and the bike was delivered to me in early March. I decided to do something a little bit different with this bike and I gave it the full luxury dad bike experience. It was 100% stock when I took delivery, but it needed some help because it was kind of old. I had the bike sent to CTX Motoworks in San Antonio for a complete top to bottom refresh. And I want to give a big shout out to Brandon, the technician there, who honestly kind of turned this into a small restoration project and cleaned virtually every part on this machine for me. They left no stone unturned. No one believes me when I tell them this motorcycle is 17 years old. Look how clean this thing is. And of course, big thanks to my buddy Greg Moody, who runs the place and lovingly delivered the bike back and forth to me from all the way in San Antonio to my house here in Austin. Much appreciated. So it needed some refreshing, nothing major. Desmo and belts, cleaning up some previous shoddy work, new fork seals, new tires, adjusting a few things here and there like the throttle free play. And once I got it back, I set the suspension per the owner's manual, got my sag right. I ordered some tank grips and modified them a little bit to make my riding just right. I made a few adjustments here and there. I even ended up installing period correct Termies with the race ECU that I picked up off of eBay, and she was finally ready to go. I paid about $9,300 for this bike, and between the service parts and other odds and ends, I think I've spent about $14,000 total, which is only a little bit more than I would have paid for a brand new MT-09 or something like that. So the boy math is going good here. I think I'm in the clear with the money I spent on it. I'm still gonna do the dry clutch cover at some point because you kind of have to with this motorcycle. Want to do a tail tidy to clean it up and some fresh grips, but otherwise, she rides like a dream. In fact, why don't you come with me and we'll go for a ride and then we'll come back and look over some more details.
You know, they say, oh, he's gonna get a Harley. It's just a matter of time. He's just been riding for so long. When's the Harley coming? Guys, this is my Harley. This is my air-cooled cruiser kind of bike. This is me slowing down. I know it's hard to believe, but this is my knees in the breeze motorcycle, man. And oh my goodness, it makes me happy. You know what's funny about this is that this was a performance model back in 2009. This thing came equipped with a Ducati data acquisition system, Olin suspension, sport geometry. It was marketed as a sport motorcycle, and with 95 horsepower and an air-cooled 1100cc engine, well, 1078 cc's. This is almost like a Triumph Speed 1200 nowadays. It's insane. It's insane how far we've come. Goodness, it's crazy. So let's talk inputs. That is the main reason that I love this motorcycle. Everything is raw and analog and pure, baby. So I've got a cable throttle opening the butterfly valves to this engine directly back to the rear tire. no traction control, no electronics, no ABS. I've got direct lines to the brakes, stainless from the factory. I got a single-sided swing arm, a dry clutch chattering away, a proper trellis frame since this is pre-VW ownership and before the Monster kind of lost its way a little bit. Air cooled. I mean, what is not to like here, folks? God damn. It's a puro classico experience, baby, and I am all about it. Wow, I love riding this bike. You know, when I first got it, I was kind of, and this might sound silly because it's been a while since I've ridden a raw, old school analog bike like this, but I was a little overwhelmed with the amount of feedback the motorcycle gave me. I actually thought something might be wrong with it because I was just getting so much information from the handlebars and the vibration and just a whole lot of feel from the seat of the pants and the rear tire. And then I just remembered, like, wait a second, that's what it's all supposed to feel like. I remember now. It's been so many years of riding these super polished new motorcycles that you ride the old stuff and you're like, yeah, man, this is what it's supposed to be like. You know, when I'm on the side of the tire with this thing, particularly in left-hand corners, you pick up the throttle, you actually feel the chain tighten up a little bit and you feel that slack go away on the chain from the front sprocket actually pulling it. It's such a wonderful, just mechanical sensation with this motorcycle. Genuinely a beautiful thing to ride. What's interesting is that the spec sheet is super deceptive on this motorcycle. If you were to just look at the numbers on this bike, you think, okay, big air-cooled engine, 95 horsepower, 405 pounds, wet and ready to ride. You're like, okay, it's probably going to be kind of like a Hornet 750, right? No, no. This thing's got sharp steering, a short, stumpy little wheelbase. It wants to wheelie all the time. It's got 76 foot-pounds of torque, basically off idle. And so you kind of get this, like, you know, hyper naked experience, but without the crazy top end power. You know, I just had that 210 V4 for a while here on the channel, and I really loved that motorcycle, but I talked a lot about this, where it was the sort of bike you'd get in trouble riding it. And I don't really think I can get in trouble riding this bike. I mean, I don't even think I go much above 100 miles an hour with it, you know, which is great. It's exactly the type of thing I need in my life. Riding this motorcycle really gives you perspective for just how good the modern motorcycle really is. Even your average run-of-the-mill middleweight naked, like a CB750 Hornet, they're so smooth, they're so composed, they're so easy to ride, they do everything you ask them to do. But then you jump on this and you remember how satisfying it is riding something like this correctly, nailing all the downshifts yourself, trailing the brakes, feeling every little millimeter of pressure on the bar, you know, every tiny input you give to this motorcycle, you get something directly out of it. And I really appreciate that, you know. I think in a world where you just crack open the throttle on a brand new leader bike and the whole thing just sorts itself out, I think it's really special when you ride a bike like this, and you know, you have to ride it the way it was intended. You have to practice that perfect technique, and it lets you really think about those sort of things when you're riding, because you see the net impact. When you ride some of these newer bikes, you know, you end up doing stuff that, you know, the computer kind of sorts it out, or if you have a little bit of brake pressure, ABS will just kick in, whatever. And this is just wonderful for that. You can really, really sense what you're doing with the motorcycle.
And here's what I like about this particular bike. It's special, but it's not precious. I use the things I own the way they were intended. I ride them, I take care of them, and I don't mind a little wear and tear. I'm not a flashy guy, but I like owning a handful of interesting and tasteful things that I can point to and have a story about. It's like the watches I own. None are super flashy or expensive, but each have their own special stories and why I own it. This bike was the last big air-cooled monster. It's old school in the ways that matter, but modern enough in the ways that are important. This was pre-VW ownership of Ducati, so it's a proper Ducati. I also think time has been really kind to this motorcycle. It has a totally timeless and classic appeal with the red paint, exposed frame, booming exhaust, and all that good stuff. It's aged into what I'm gonna call a heritage sport model, which totally fits my life and vibe now.
So if you'll allow me, I'm gonna jump back into the studio and give you my closing thoughts.
I know it's kind of a cliche, but the longer I ride, the more I'm just starting to ignore the spec sheet. I'm simply chasing a feeling with motorcycling these days. I don't care how I get it, where I get it, I just want the feeling. And sometimes that feeling is comfort, cruising blissfully on my Touareg 660 on a big long day ride through the hill country to just de-stress. Other times, I'm targeting apexes at the track on a 3-cylinder missile that reps to 14,000 RPM with my elbow floating above the paint. And now, it's the feeling of firing up this booming Ducati Monster, letting it idle all lumpy when it's cold, and riding it in that 100% analog way. It connects me to why I started loving motorcycles in the first place. And I just feel good looking at it. I feel good hearing it, and I love riding it. And at the end of the day, that's all a bike really needs to do. I get those warm, fuzzy feelings when I think about this bike. I want to swing a leg and ride it constantly, and I love knowing that it's all mine. The biggest praise I can give to this bike is that I never really want to stop riding it. I like riding it fast, I like riding it slow, I like looking at it, and I love how it sounds. What else do you really need in life? The reason I don't buy personal bikes for myself all the time is that I just prioritize simplicity over clutter. I much prefer owning 2 or 3 really nice bikes that I love and understand really deeply, rather than having a garage full of junk that just doesn't run right or needs a bunch of maintenance. I've been there and done that. I don't really want to do it again. I'm really fortunate that I could buy pretty much whatever bike I want, but I like owning things that matter to me. As weird as it is to say, given my line of work, I don't really want to buy something just to flex online and get some attention these days. I think choosing to own a bike should reflect something about you. It should communicate your taste in some sort of way. A lot of YouTubers nowadays just try to get the flashiest, craziest thing, the most expensive bike they can. They'll wrap their bikes in gaudy, shiny, metallic gold wrap and get the loudest exhaust possible. That feeling's kind of hollow to me. I want to be emotionally connected to my bike. I want to look at it and love it and know that I chose it for me. I think motorcycling in this way is heading towards the same vibe I get from owning a watch with a mechanical movement. Yes, it's more cumbersome, it's kind of annoying, gotta wind it up, and we obviously have superior technology, but I don't know, there's something kind of romantic about it. So this is probably the only video I'm gonna make about this bike where it's the star of the show. It's not really meant to get views, it's just for me. I'm sure this bike's gonna pop up here and there, but I can't really justify making videos about it all the time. And honestly, nothing makes me happier nowadays than riding without a camera strapped to my helmet and just quietly taking in the sound of my bike and the road. In fact, let's end today's video with just that.